And now it's time for our speaker. Now, our speaker, you all know her. She comes faithfully every Sunday she can be here and does Reiki, and every bit of money donation she gets, she turns over to the building fund. She is an author, she is a teacher, she is a speaker. Please help me welcome from home, Susan Gregg.
Thanks, Kathy. Okay, so happy Easter. I thought it was interesting when Kathy asked me to speak, and I don't think either of us realized it was Easter Sunday, but it was. And today we celebrate the resurrection of love. I long believed that only the love is real. Everything else is a delusion created by our minds. And I think of the symbolism of Christ up on the cross and all that as, letting go of our mind, letting go of our limiting beliefs. We're not our bodies. We're the energy that gives life to our bodies. And when we align with that, we're limitless. It's just we're the energy of creation, the energy of God, however you perceive that. And I did some research before I did the talk, which is unusual for me. But I've always been curious about how they pick out Easter Sunday. And Joseph Campbell explained it. Easter is calculated as the Sunday that follows the first moon after the vernal equinox. It is evidence of concern centuries before Christ to coordinate their lunar and solar calendars. What we have to recognize is that these celestial bodies represent to the ancients two different modes of eternal life. One engaged in the field of time, like throwing off death, as the moon is the shadow to be born again. The other disengaging and internal. The dating of Easter, according to both lunar and solar calendars, suggests that life, like the light, is reborn in the moon and eternal in the sun, finally is one. And really, the moon is just beautiful. We just had our full moon, and normally, I have observed up where I live, full moon, it usually rains. I never get to see the moon. But this time, it was just beautiful. And I'm doing all the caretaking at home, and so I tend to get up in the middle of the night to take care of puppies and things to go out. And I was looking at the moon last night, and it's just magnificent. And it doesn't have a light of its own. It just reflects the light of the sun. And I studied with Don Miguel Ruiz for many years, and one of the things he said was, that it seems as though there's lots of darkness, but if you put anything up in the darkness, it reflects the light. Where's the light come from? And we're like that. Also, we can just reflect the light. We don't have to get deep into the trauma and drama. This pandemic is an interesting experience, to say the least. It feels to me very much like some of the science fiction books I read years ago. And what are we going to create? What are we going to manifest out of this? We always have a choice. We can get up on the cross and suffer and be a victim, or we can resurrect ourselves. We can transform. And, I always like Thich Nhat Hanh, and I also like lotuses. I have a lot of lotus ponds. And one of the things he said, no mud, no lotus. And it's true. My lotuses do a lot better now that there's a lot of mud. And so out of the mud comes a beautiful lotus. And that can be true in our lives as well. Without crucifixion, so to speak, there's no resurrection. So what is it we want to create in our lives? Do we want to stay with trauma and drama, or do we want to make a different choice? And we make those choices moment by moment, day by day. The philosophy of religious science of the mind is, that's what it's all about, changing your mind. And it was interesting because this morning, when I studied with Miguel, his two sons who now teach were, like so high. They were little kids. They were maybe 10 and 8. And when I went to Sedona and participated in a large retreat with Sedona, with Miguel, I got to meet the sons again. And Don Jose is just really, really sweet, very loving, really cute. And this morning he posted something on Facebook. And he calls it the artist of freedom. The sky will open when we open our hearts, and all love merges as one. The sky, like mud, accepts your seed, your intent, so a tree can grow and give you all the fruit you will need to prepare your meal, a dream meal that will feed our souls to the core of expansion like the sun. The moon and the stars expand their light, and that's their gift. Our gift is also light, for we are all feeding life. Life creating, life supporting one another is nature's way. Today is the day we celebrate the resurrection of love, our love. And when we tune into love and gratitude, what a difference. You know, it was interesting. I was having a financial hiccup, and I got a notice from my mortgage company that they were going to repossess my house. And I thought, no. So I called them up, and they said, well, thanks to the coronavirus, we're not doing that anymore. And I was like, right on, you know, some benefit of the coronavirus. And, you know, I watch people. I went to Safeway the other morning and didn't go in because there was a long line. And people are standing in line, and they're like inches away from one another. You know, social distancing obviously went out the window. And it just amazes me how different people react to different things. I saw a thing on the news about in LA, you know, the freeways are pretty much empty, so the kids are using it to street race. And they had helicopters so they could give them tickets and give them hell. And they were doing 120 miles an hour on the freeway because there weren't any cars. You know, and so we all respond differently. You know, I'm fortunate to live in Hawaii, you know, and it's been really rainy and cold, and I was whining, and then 2 days ago it stopped being rainy and it got hot. And so this morning I was feeding the chickens, and I was like, damn, it's hot. And it's like, well, you know, could you just enjoy the weather? You know, could you just, you know, if it's cold, it's cold. If it's hot, it's hot. And we create our entire experience of life by what we tell ourselves. You know, the thoughts that we have. And our minds are habitual. I call it our filter system. Our beliefs, our agreements, our assumptions, our attitudes, and we don't experience life directly. What we experience is our filter system. And as we change our filter system, we experience something differently. We literally see differently. And, you know, what have you been seeing in your life? I'm on Facebook, and reading the posts have been interesting. Like somebody said that, you know, they always said they didn't have enough time to clean their house. And then they had to admit that now that they have all the time, they realize they just didn't want to clean their house, you know. And think of all the things, you know, that we are now afforded time to do. And are we enjoying it? You know, are we doing the things we said we wanted to do, or other things? And it's an opportunity for us to see what it is we really, really want. Do we really want to spend time creating beautiful works of art, or do we want to clean the toilet? You know, there's something to be said for both of them, you know, but what matters more? And doing things like Thich Nhat Hanh has been one of my favorite authors. And he wrote a book, don't remember which one it was, he wrote many, and it was about different household chores. And I used to hate doing the dishes. I'd wait until every dish in the house was dirty, and then I would do them. And he wrote this little ditty about, you know, when you're washing your dishes, you're giving your hand a bath. I love taking warm, soaky baths. And so after that, I looked at doing the dishes as giving my hands a bath. And I enjoy doing dishes. You know, for a while I wasn't enjoying them because I wasn't filling the sink up, so now I fill the sink up and I have a nice bath for my hands. And everything is relative. You know, paying your bills. I used to have a basket when I lived in California. It was beautifully decorated, and you know, I had dollar bills on it and affirmations and just pretty pictures. Whenever I got a bill, instead of stuffing it in my drawer and dreading it, I would put it in my basket and I would celebrate it. And it was amazing how much easier it was to pay my bills. You know, at some level, I think I kind of miss sitting down and writing the bills and putting stamps. Not enough to stop paying online, but you know. And what things in your life do you dread? And how else can you look at them? You know, getting up in the morning. You know, I used to, when I was in college, I had to set 2 alarm clocks to get up for class. I had one next to my bed, which I would immediately shut off, and then one all the way across the room, and it was very annoying. And I would have to get up to shut it off, and by the time I got up and got across the room, it was 50-50 that I'd stay awake and get to class, you know, because I just hated getting up in the morning. And now I wake up just before dawn, and I try not to stir too much because I don't want all the cats and dogs to come running over and go, oh, feed me, you know. But I just lay there and enjoy shifting my consciousness from sleep to awake. And just watching the light, watching the light change. Far different than when I was in college, you know. And what changed? The way I perceived getting up in the morning, you know, the way I perceived time. And, you know, just think about time. Yeah, a friend of mine told me, you know, time is things I must earn. But time is totally relative. I would assume you've all had the experience of doing something that you totally bored of doing. And you look at the clock and you think a half hour's gone by and maybe a minute, you know, and you just keep looking at the clock and you know that the clock is broken because the hands are just not moving. And then you're doing something you love and you look at the clock and you go, oh my God, 10 hours have gone by. You know, what's the difference? It's what you're telling yourself, and not necessarily consciously. It's not like you're consciously saying, well, I hate doing this, so I'm going to make time go slow. It's just the way we focus our attention. And love, you know, today is the day that in the Christian tradition, Jesus resurrected, and then he ran around on the earth for, I forget how many days, and then he went to heaven. And, you know, I was always fascinated by his teachings, not necessarily the cross and the suffering and all that, but some of his words, you know, and you can do this or better, you know, and I often thought about that because he was an incredible healer. You know, his energy was so vibrant, he could walk through a village and people would be healed. And Yogananda, same thing. You know, him and his gurus and his teachers, they had raised their energy vibration so high that just by being in their presence, you were changed. So we can vibrate at whatever resonance we want. You know, we can be little energy suckers, you know, and people are around us and they feel tired and depressed and, ooh, I don't want to be around them. Or we can be somebody that's just vibrant and alive and smiles a lot and shares that energy of love and gratitude. You know, it's entirely up to us what we do and how we choose to vibrate. You know, everything is energy. And love expands, fear contracts. So the more we stay in the energy of love, the more our life expands. You know, when I got that notice from my mortgage company, I was like, nah. And I just meditated, and I certainly didn't expect that solution, but hey, it's a solution, you know? And I also did some more in-depth exploration about, you know, what's it with you and money? You know, first time I had money, I was a little kid, and my mom and I were coming back from the store, and she gave me the change to hold. And I don't think it was really that far from the store to the house, but I got part way to the house, and I got tired of holding the money, so I threw it down the sewer, you know? And that kind of is an example of the way I've treated money over my life. And it's like, okay, it's time to stop throwing it down the sewer and allowing it to come to you. And she was not happy when I got home. She's like, where's the money? I threw it down the sewer. And she was like, why did you do that? My hands got sticky, you know? And it was like, it's just, and I was just little, and I didn't necessarily get that belief system from them, but I always hated sticky hands, so maybe I have to realize that money doesn't really make your hands sticky. It just makes life easier. And as we become aware of pieces of our filter system, I'm always blown away. It's like, I believe that, really? And when I change it, when I move into love and gratitude, and being grateful for a particular limiting belief, and grateful for the fact that I can change it, it's amazing what happens in my life. You know, easy and effortless has been my mantra for a while. And most of the time, things are easy and effortless. I kind of lost easy and effortless when my partner had the second surgery in a year, and I once again was tasked with taking care of the chickens and everything. And so finally I decided, you know, they're creatures. You love cats and you love dogs, you love your parrot, why not love the chickens? And so I started loving the chickens, and as soon as I did, it became so much easier to take care of them. You know, and the only thing I don't like is when I feed them, when I go to put the food in their bowl, one of them inevitably flies out of someplace and bites my finger. And I do not like having my finger bitten by chickens. So, but I've been more alert to that, and with my other hand, I just kind of wait to whack her, you know. I don't know if that's very loving, but she flew at me first, so, you know. And, you know, the weather, money, people, you know, having to do social distancing. I mean, the biggest thing I'm missing with the social distancing is hugs. You know, I still have the interaction, I still have the connection with people, but I'm a hugger. And I didn't used to be. You know, once I got on a spiritual path, it was like people would want to hug, and I'd be kind of like, okay, well, I'll hug. And then I just got into it, and I just really like that connection. You know, and hopefully after the virus is gone, people will remember that hugging's good. You know, we'll get back into being our huggy self. You know, and we exchange energy when we hug. Why do we like that, you know? Relationships, it's an exchange of energy. And we can be in a relationship with somebody and be absolutely miserable and tell ourselves one thing about them, or we can be in a relationship and tell ourselves something different. The person doesn't have to change. You know, what we tell ourselves changes. You know, since I've been coming here, the thing that I really love is after the prayer or after the treatment, and so it is. And it's an affirmation of, as we speak, so it is. You know, Kathy sent me some stuff before I talked, and one of the things I really liked was there was a quote by Dumbledore from Harry Potter, and it was, "Happiness can be found in the darkest of times if one only remembers to turn on the light." You know, and so, you know, just turn on the light of love. Give yourself permission to turn on your magnificence. You know, really, one of the things I have written down here is no crucifixion, no resurrection. I don't really think we have to suffer before we resurrect to who and what we are, but giving ourselves permission to transform our thinking, transform the way we feel, transform our actions. You know, doing things like, now when I wash the dishes, and I do it from that place of, you know, I'm giving my hands a bath, it's altogether different. It's not that I wash them any better. I mean, I still get quite a few rejects, but, you know, I enjoy doing it. And when I clean the house, the same thing. You know, I used to be, oh my God. And now I enjoy vacuuming, because after I get done vacuuming, all the pet hair is gone, and we have a puppy, and she loves to chew paper, so there's little spitballs all over the place. And when I get done vacuuming, all that's gone, you know, and it looks neat and orderly for at least 10 minutes, you know. And I could think about, oh my God, I got to do it again, or I could just do it again, you know. And I can procrastinate. You know, I used to be a wonderful procrastinator. And I would make lists. I owned a house, and I was remodeling it, and I wasn't getting very far. I got to a certain point in the remodel, and then I kind of stalled. And so I had the brilliant idea one day. I would write down everything that needed to be done. Well, that really ground everything to a halt, because I'd look at that list, and it was like, oh my God, I can't do all that stuff. And then when I was studying with Miguel, I had this old guy that was my mentor, and he lived down the beach from me. And I'd go down, and I'd sit on his couch, and he'd have me read Aristotle and, you know, all the philosophers, and he just, you know, he was educating my mind. And he talked to me about procrastination. He said, it's real easy. He says, it's easy to procrastinate, easy to change it. He said, make a list of 3 things, and you don't put anything on your list of 3 things unless you really have a dedication to doing it. And then no matter what happens, you do them by the end of the day. And it's a way to get over procrastination, and it works. The key being, you don't put it on your list unless you're going to do it. And I'm not great at taking directions, so I had 5 things. 5 things that I did for my spiritual practices. And one of them was to go to the beach. I lived 4 houses from the beach in San Diego. And I got into bed one night, and San Diego, maybe if you live on the other side of the mountains where it's desert and it's 100 degrees, it's cold. And my house didn't really have a heater in it, and it was night, and it was winter, and it was really, really cold. And my dad had given me a heater for my mattress, because I didn't like electric blankets. And so I had just gotten into bed, and it was nice and warm and cozy, and I realized I hadn't gone to the beach that day. And so I had this long debate with myself. Well, I'll go tomorrow. I'll go twice tomorrow, and I did. And finally I was like, no, it's on my list. I will do it. So I got out of bed, and I had this long conversation about, it's not safe. You're going to be down under the boardwalk, and blah, blah, blah. And I walked down there. I must admit, I didn't stay there very long. And what I would do is I would go down to the beach, I'd hold my hands up, and I'd say, just love me. And the first time I did that, I felt the love of the universe. And I just cried. And so I would do that every day and fill up myself with love. I didn't do a whole lot of love me kind, because it was scary, and there was a lot of people doing drugs and stuff, but I did it. And I really think if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be who I am today. Because the next day I would have put off something else, and I wouldn't have really dedicated myself to changing my mind, changing my thoughts, changing who I was. And it amazes me, because if you'd known me before I started doing this, you wouldn't have wanted to know me. I was from New York City, and I was a mean SOB, and I had a really bad attitude. And I was an artist, but then there was that other side of me, But now I consider myself a love bunny. One of the things I like about Easter is all the bunnies. I'm not sure why Easter and bunnies are so associated, but, I've been seeing lots of things about bunnies, and I saw a thing on Facebook. There were all these chocolate bunnies, and they had masks on. So people are still having a sense of humor about this whole thing. I've seen, when I go to the store, I've seen some very interesting masks, and lots of people without masks. And, everybody is experiencing this virus differently. Some people are using it as an opportunity to exit stage right. And go to the other side or wherever it is we go. And the Toltec tradition is one of my favorites. And one of the things they do is they divide the universe up into the knowable and the unknowable. And the theory being is if it's by definition unknowable, why waste your time trying to figure it out? So what happens after we die? Unknowable. I have a feeling that we jump back into the sea of God and we become one with that eternal source. And my definition of God is very, very different than it used to be. I used to think of God as this nasty old man, and he had a book, and I knew I was in the wrong book, And now it's the energy of creation. And we get to play with that all the time. What is it this is, to me, it's a very, very powerful time in our history. And it's an opportunity for us as a species to create something different, or not. World War II, to me, was an opportunity for us to make a choice. We could have looked at Hitler and all those beliefs and said, how did we create that as a species? How did that come into existence? And instead of judging them and, killing some of them and, Nuremberg trials and all that, we could have really looked at it and said, wow, this is the world that judgment creates. This is the world that separation creates. And we could have made different choices, but we didn't. We just chose to do same old, same old. And, we can, with all this that's going on, we can do the same thing. We can just look at it as, go back to doing exactly what we were doing. And, and I saw a thing from a vegan on Facebook about, it was actually Joan Goodall. And that this disease was created by people mistreating animals. And that's one way to look at it. And then are we going to continue to do that? What is it we want to create? What is it we want more of in our life? What do we want less of? And I think this is a really powerful time in history for us to do that. The sign, awakening humanity to its spiritual magnificence. Awakening yourself to your spiritual magnificence. Because you're absolutely beautiful. You're the energy. Every time you take a breath, that's a gift from your spirit of life. And your spirit is just absolutely beautiful. Literally, when I studied with Miguel one time, we went up to Big Bear for a weekend, and he was out on a dock, and I got to see energy, literally physically see energy for the first time. And I went dancing down the dock, and I said to him, I can see energy, I can see. And, he just looked at me, and he was like, yeah, so? But when I see energy, it's like all these beautiful sparkles of light that we don't even have those colors here. And that's what you really are. And as you align with that, your life becomes more and more magical and full of miracles. And magic and miracles, love and happiness and joy, that's our natural state of being. So step into it. Get off that cross. Resurrect yourself to love and see what happens. Let me see if I have another thing. This one, yes, I got to read this one. Happiness can be, no, I already read that one. The moment you stand up and claim your divinity, Christ is reborn within your heart. Buddha rejoices. Mohammed dances on the mountaintop. Lao-Tzu winks approvingly. And the promise of the tree of life is fulfilled. I know that the hand of God is the promise of my own, and I know that the Spirit of God is the brother of my own, and I know that all men are born are also my brothers, and all women my sisters. And that's by Walt Whitman. So, you are perfect, just the way you are. Let your love shine. So, thanks.
Thank you for that wonderful message, Susan. Very. And you are a love bunny. We all know that about you. Okay, this in our normal service order, this would be our time for conscious giving. So I want you to go ahead and say our affirmation wherever you are, because it's very powerful and it's very true. So divine love, in and through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. And so it is. All right, I want to thank everybody who have donated and continue to support us, and remind you that it's very easy to make a donation by PayPal or by credit card. If you're watching on YouTube, the link is in the video description, and there's a donate button at the top right of our YouTube channel page. We also have a link on our webpage, hawaiicsl.org. And of course, a good old-fashioned check can be sent in the mail. But for those of you who have been keeping up with that, we thank you for blessing us, for blessing our church, for enabling us to continue to pay our bills. We are very grateful.